Hey guys, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie and today's going to be another project share video. I have been working through the classes that I signed up for in September, October, and November. Slowly but surely making my way through. This was a Pinkfresh scrapbooking class. I've got a bunch of projects to share, so let me pull this away and we'll share with you one at a time. So the first class featured a Dreamy Floral product suite. Again, these are all from Pinkfresh. And we did 2 layouts in the class and 1 make and take. And the first one we did was this kind of doodly design featuring the floral ephemera. I have a picture of me with my 2 sisters. I added this striped bordered paper all the way around. The original design did not call for it, but I like that introduction of the black stripe with the black doodling. I really think this one turned out quite cute. The same product suite, but this time we focused on the stamps, and the original design called for the image here to be cut out in the shape of one of the floral items, but I couldn't get it to work with the photo that I had, so I just left it with a circle. It was originally an 8.5 by 11 layout, but I prefer either to go big, 12 by 12, or small, 6 by 8. So I pulled this particular cardstock from my stash. Now I think, yeah, this is Stampin' Up, and it's an older collection for sure, but I really liked how the blues from here worked with the blues that I used for the stamped images. I didn't do it intentionally. I started with coloring and then went and picked the paper afterwards, so I'm glad it worked out. So the last layout featuring this product suite was another 8.5 by 11 layout, which I did exactly the same concept. I just added it to the 12 by 12 paper. Also from my stash, and this is, I think, Doodlebug. It looks like Doodlebug. And same deal. I did the colors, which I picked from the photo, and then I found the cardstock to work. I don't know how well you can see this. One of the products we got with the kit was an alpha set, and we made this little, almost looks embossed, circle panel that has the word U on it. The next class featured one of their scrapbooking kits, as opposed to stamps and dies, and the color scheme was different than this. They focused on more of the reds and yellows, and I went more with the greens and blues. And I really like how the designer used frames. Frames are one of those things that I struggle with in my mind. I think they should always just have a photo or something in them, and I don't always have a photo that works. So I love this idea of using them as design elements, but also still adding photos in them where appropriate. We used the same stamp image from the first class in here as embellishments, which I thought was fun when they mix things up and show you how they all work or with each other. And this was the make and take again. It was another 8.5 by 11 layout that I converted into a 12 by 12. In this case, I added it in the center, so I've got the 2 panels down the side. I got my measurements wrong. The design was originally intended to be this way, so it should have been narrower. But I think it still works okay, and I like how this one turned out. It's a heavy page though, like this is a lot of paper. Their paper is a good thickness, so yeah, it's a bit heavy. Okay, so then the next class was using the Delightful collection. So again, it was another scrapbooking collection. This was taught by Paige Evans, so you can see right away her influence because she likes to do lots of color, lots of layers, and it's usually quite busy in design. So this kind of frame and heart was a cut file that she provided, and it was actually already pre-cut for us, which was nice. And in her original design, she did not have this blue border around. It was just this particular piece of paper on this background. And I like a little more contrast in my designs. I think it helps with your eye a little bit, just to kind of give it a place to rest. So I did add that navy blue, and I also incorporated that as part of the title. This was celebrating my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. A lot of tone on tone And that's kind of one way to keep a busy design less busy, right? So if you match the colors up, your eye can kind of filter through it. So I like how this one turned out. I'm really happy having added in, like I said, the blue. I think that just makes everything pop. The second layout that she had featured pinwheels and was more like flower stalks, and it just was not my aesthetic at all. And so I completely switched it up. The background paper is the same paper she used. I did use the pinwheels, so I did create them as she taught in the class. But then I turned this into a wreath. I used a punch from my collection to kind of form the wreath. And then I also added a round circle out of white to kind of form the form for the wreath, and to give, again, a little bit of breathing space because this is such a busy layout. And then I just tucked in some different embellishments and ephemera from the collection. I really like how this one turned out too, and I'm glad that I switched it up to make it more me. And then the make and take was this one featuring all these different colored strips. And we also received this tag die, and in the class they actually had photos, but I did not have photos selected. So this is just going to go in my base page stack, and one day I will find the right photos for this. I tried to keep the ephemera that I chose somewhat neutral and not any one thing specific. So the next class that we had featured Good Times, again, another collection. And it was this very interesting mini album, but it wasn't really an album. It was more like a stand, and then it had slots that you could add little fold outs and tags and stuff too. It was just super cute, totally not practical from the way that I store my albums. I knew that it would get crushed in a heartbeat. Or it would just, you know, get messed up. So I took the product and I turned it into a mini album. It is an autumn themed book. So I guess if I had been a little bit more proactive, I would have taken specific photos this fall to fill this in, but I didn't. So we'll fill it in next year, I guess. So the pages themselves follow the ideas of the album in the class. So for instance, like this little pocket, or not little pocket, this little fold out that I have tied would have been one of the items that slotted into that quote unquote mini album stand. I added some twine just to keep it somewhat contained. I like how that turned out. On this side here, I added a band with some other elements tucked in underneath. So if you pull these out, I added this tag and then this card with a little embellishment. I can always add a photo or something on the back side. This particular band, I glued this flap on, but I can still add photos and journaling. And again, this would have been a piece that would have tucked into that folder, and then I just used the extra embellishments to add these tuck items in the back. I also purposely placed this leaf here with a foam dot and a little bit loose so that this can tuck underneath and keeps it from flopping around, if that makes sense. This was a pocket that has a tag inside. Again, journaling or photos can easily be added. On this side, I did another band. I added the little ladybug at the bottom, again, to just kind of hold it in place. For this one, the whole thing comes out, and again, I used the little clips to hold it in place. Scrap piece of cardstock, can add photos on and journaling, and then this would have been the element from the class that would have tucked into that folder. Because this is somewhat loose, I liked using these little clips to keep everything in place. On this page, I've got another band with another one of those fold outs and clips. And in this case, this actually folds out this way. It is one of those like accordion folds. And then I have a 4x4 card that tucks in there. So this again just folds. So folds, and then that tucks under the band across like so, and then I just clip this in place to hold on to it. Normally I don't like to do a lot of different clips and stuff in my books, just because I think it's a little bit, what's the right word, clunky, I guess. But in this case I just needed to make it work. You could use magnets and stuff, I just didn't feel like pulling them out to make this work in this case. Okay, so here's another one of those accordion folds to hold this one down. I did use more of those clips, and this one, well, I guess it's not really technically an accordion fold, it's just a tri-fold. And then the last set of pages is another one of those bands, and in this case I have 2 cards, but this one I created a little flap on the top to kind of just hold that in place. And then here's the piece from the class that would have gone into that stand. Now, do I need a clip in this one? Probably not, because this is going to hold in place, but seeing as I had so many of them already out, why not? And then the last page of the book is a pocket, and I just threw some of these other tags that were left over from the ephemera kit in here. And again, you could tuck photos, etc. in. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's a super cute little book. I did use twine instead of ribbon just because the color worked really well. So much fun. I guess fall's not over yet, so maybe I can still take some photos and finish it. I don't know. We'll see. And then we had the Make and Take, which just featured that same collection again. I have a couple spots for photos. I switched this up a little bit because, you know, you just gotta make it yours. And this one's really pretty. It's more on the clean and simple side, which I love. I don't always excel at, so it is fun to have this in my base page collection. So the last class was featuring the Chrysanthemum product suite. This may look somewhat familiar because in my October Smasher stash, where we featured washi tape, I used this leftovers from this class to make some base pages. So we did another little mini album. This one is actually a tag album. I pulled in some twine and this tassel from my stash. I added this little handmade charm featuring one of the chipboard pieces. I think that's super cute. They called for a white binder ring. I did not have a white, so I went with this kind of antique bronze, and I think it works just as well. We made a shaker pocket cover, and then there's just a bunch of different layering pieces in here. So obviously, like this piece here, you can add a photo or journaling on the back. There's little tags that you can, or you know, you don't have to do anything with it. They can just be what they are. We incorporated some elements that are a little bit more interactive. A lot of cute little tags, some of the frames. I really loved the use of vellum as tags in here. I think that's super cute. And then this one here is a pocket with the piece that slides out. The only thing you have to keep in mind when you use a pocket with a ring is you want to make sure that the insert, you know, falls below where the ring is going to be. And this is now smaller than the pocket because of that. Or rather, I guess it tucks behind the opening. So I did add more of those clips just to kind of act as a stopper so that it doesn't slide all the way through. And then the back side has a frame, a little framed vellum piece, super cute. Some of these, like this here, I mean, obviously it's not very aesthetically pleasing, so I did write on there add photo just as a reminder. Obviously where it's white, I left it in case I wanted to do journaling. And again, just more simple decorative elements. We really featured the tag collection that came with this. And we end up with another pocket. And this one just has a small tag in it, but you can add photos, etc. in there. Okay, so that is that little mini album. And then the last layout is this grid design featuring that same collection. It allows for a 2.5 by 2.5 photo, a little bit of journaling. Again, this is a Paige Evans design, so there's lots of product on it, very typical of her, but I love this one. And I think I love it because of its linear design, and the product is just so pretty. Like, how could you not go to town on this? We did do some stitching, so it is a chain stitch, which you didn't have to do. You could have just drawn this in if you wanted to, but I like the texture that that adds. So that was the September 2022 Pinkfresh scrapbooking class. I hope you enjoyed the project. Share and let me know below what your favorite project or layout design was. And until next time, happy crafting.